Thank you for your curiosity. With us today is our first pro MMA fighter on the podcast. He's a first degree BJJ black belt, a father, a husband, and a coach. With us in the goddamn room is none other than Leodegario, the Mexecutioner Muñiz. I get that
What's
right?
going on, bro? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Leodegario.
You already got Leodegario. Say it again?
Leodegario.
Leodegario? What have you, Leodegario?
I mean, don't worry, bro. Like, there's been, I've got my entire life of people butchering my name. It's so long and stuff, but, I don't know. I've learned to like it because it's unique.
You know, though, I do want to make sure I get your name right. So Leodegario. So it's the
Yes.
proper pronunciation because I have a super difficult last name and no one can say it to save their ass unless they
Yeah.
speak Spanish. So my apologies. And it's your
That's all
birthday.
good.
So we
Yeah.
definitely don't want to butcher the name on your birthday, Leo. My
Th-
apologies, man.
That's all good, bro. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Just so that you can get it up and running. So I do believe that in order to understand the present, catch a glimpse of the future, we need to do a little bit of research and go back to the past. So with that in mind, what were you like as a child?
As a child, I was just very energetic. So my parents always had a thing, well, mainly my father here had a thing where it's like I got to keep this kid busy, otherwise he gets into trouble. And just like that, whenever I'm bored, I get into trouble. Now, not to say that I got in trouble like in the wrong way, but I just like of how energetic I am and how I would say curiosity, like how curious I was. Like it's just like it get me to things that it shouldn't have happened, but it's because I was bored. So my father always like he made sure that I was always doing something. So biggest things was making sure that I was in sports and in a way entertained.
That's good. And yeah, I've heard that a lot from a lot of fighters. Even Cain Velasquez's dad said it too. That, he was like, my son wasn't a bad kid, but like he's so energetic
Yeah,
that you need to do something with that energy. So he got him into wrestling and boxing at that age. So
exactly.
that
And
makes
then that's the biggest thing. Like that's something I took from my father with my kids. I see how they are. And he's always said that a kid that's bored has got too much time on his hands. He's gonna find himself in trouble. Not because he's looking for it, but it's just inevitable. So it's like I gotta keep him busy where his mind's occupied.
exactly, and that's definitely something that a lot of parents do when they get their kids into sports. People take that wrong. It's like, no, that's not what it is. He's right. Use the energy that you have in an effective manner, in a way that's going to be constructive. But I did want to know because you've got quite the history in the fight sport. But what got you started into martial arts? Like, what was the martial arts journey like? Like, where did you start, and then like, how did it kind of transition?
So I got into Taekwondo for a little bit as a kid. Didn't do anything too crazy, but I did get a glimpse of I would say like the adrenaline from competing and all that stuff. So it's something that's always been there, especially with other sports, uh soccer, like that feel of like a competitiveness has always been installed in me since I was young. And that was pretty much it as far as like in the martial arts world or just my upbringing. Like I've always had like something to do competitively. So it's something that I've always kind of like wanted to keep in my life up until now.
Yeah, man, that's wonderful. I can definitely relate to that because I started with boxing when I was like 4. Our grandfather was ex-military, so he was obsessed with like, I just want to make sure you can defend yourself more than anything.
Yeah.
Just getting that done. But then, at what point did you start training Taekwondo, and then you transition into other martial arts? But at what point did you like, you know what? I'm gonna go beat people up in a cage. That just sounds like the thing I want to do for the rest.
So the competitiveness was always in me, right? When I was about 18, I saw 17 or 18, and no, 18. I saw my first UFC fight. It was Roger Huerta versus Clay Guida. If you ever saw a fight, that was a crazy fight.
Yeah, I
I
did.
saw that fight and I was like blown away by it. Yeah. So I was like, oh man, I gotta do this. Like I know how to kick, so I just gotta go get some hands, right? And then I ended up going to a boxing gym in the hood, Third Avenue, 149th Street, John's Boxing Gym, and that's where I started for like I would say I was there for 3 months. But the format of a boxing gym, I don't know, you've been in one, so it's like it's very grimy. It's like coaches are there, like they're in a way like they're just kind of like the part-time coaches, doing it after work, trying to find their, let's just say their golden egg, their ticket, into some big money, right? So there was not a lot of structure in a boxing gym. I learned a lot because it's just like it's very competitive. Every day you go in there, you are training, but at the same time you're fighting, So it's like I got that from the jump. And then it wasn't until then that I found that there was a small local gym around me that I was like, oh, they do MMA. So I went over there, and that was in 2010. and I ended up kind of just sticking with it. And I ran with it full force.
That's beautiful, man. That's a great way to start. And I get what you mean. Yeah, I started originally from boxing, and even when I lived in Texas, when I was in Texas, like boxing club, it did feel like sparring was always a fight. It never felt like just sparring.
It's
And I
always a fight. Because think about just especially like if you're going like think about the sport of boxing. Like yeah, like it's a it sounds messed up to say, but it's a poor man's sport. You know, you get all the you find a local warehouse, right? You don't even gotta set it up nicely. You just fucking just put a couple heavy bags, a couple of rings, have some mitts so coaches can hold, and then any kid in the hood that can spare at the time, when I joined, it was like $50 for the membership and like kind of like 25 a week for the coach. Like it's like that's all you need for a kid in the hood to kind of like go in there and train and fight, right? And then that led to kind of like the kids, the hood itself, it's in a different environment. It's grimy, so it's like kids in there aren't necessarily doing it for the respect and the martial art aspect, as is what we're in, right? They're in there to kind of like just fight and they don't get in trouble, so it's like that's the thing about gyms like that, like which is great. I think that's why like boxing is so unique and such a hard sport because it's just like the griminess of it.
absolutely, yeah, someone that comes from that background, that definitely sums it up pretty much. And I did, I'm from South Yonkers, so that's a tough hood to be from. But I'm looking at your career. You started in Dead Serious, then you went
Yeah.
to reality fighting and then aggressive combat. Like heading into the amateurs, did you have like a fight ritual before the fight? Like was there something that you did like to prepare yourself mentally before you jumped in?
Honestly, there was no real fight and ritual for me. For me, it was just like I was so caught up with like making sure I made weight because back then, we didn't have day before weigh-ins, so it's like I didn't have a lot of thinking to do. Like it's just like I had to weigh in at 135 and I'm cutting a decent amount of weight, right? Even though I was young and stuff, I still worked on pretty heavy. I used to cut weight like not the smart way, like not informed at all. I just kind of like made the weight. And then like a couple of hours later, I would be fighting. So there was no time, like kind of like how these guys get, like they get a full 24 hours to kind of like rehydrate and sit back, relax until fight day. Like for me, it was just like weigh in, go to the back, wrap your hands up, and you're about to go in a couple of hours. So there was no real fight ritual. Like it was just like for me, it was just like let's get in there, let's weigh in, and let's go compete, let's go fight, let's make that walk and let's fight. New because I was already doing like a couple of taekwondo competitions. The same thing. You weigh in and you go, do your competition, your tournaments. So it was the same format. So it's not like I was new to it, but I was used to it. So that's the only reason why there was no real like fight ritual for me at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know a lot of when I wrestled, at least in middle school, that was what it was like. You weighed in the same day. You had like 2-3 hours to just like I used to hide behind the bleachers and read a comic book. That was
Yeah.
preparation before it. But yeah, that's tough, man. And then I wanted to know what that was like. Um, I didn't add this question previously, but I did want to ask you too. When you had that first that thing hit you in your head, and you were like, "I'm gonna go fight a motherfucker in a cage." Can you talk me through like what happened? Like, what was it that you were like, "Oh, you know what? I could do this fighting shit. I could do it. I could go next week. Let's do it next week," or whatever it was that you had that time. Because I've heard the story of guys going like, "You know what? To be real, I was just training, and a coach asked me, and I was like, that'd be a good time." But like, what was that process like for you? Just so I have an idea.
I knew from the jump that when I joined the MMA gym, I'm like, I'm fighting. I'm fighting. Like I had one guy that I kind of like, made me push it even harder because I had just joined and the guy's like, you're not going to get your first fight till like 3 years, right? You won't be fighting. I was 20 at the time, so you're not going to fight till 23. I was like, I bet I'm going to fight in like the next year and a half. And like, so it happened. Like I joined, in 2020, August 5th, 2020. I ended up fighting October, I think it was October 30th or 21st, somewhere around that time, 2011, right before my son was born. It was like my son was born in December, so I made a debut in October, and I had already known that was the case. Like I knew I was gonna fight, but as far as the anxiety hitting, it's the whole build up to it, like the whole like training, and then having to go to sleep and thinking like, yo, somebody's getting ready to knock my head off. Like that's crazy, It's like, but it's like that made me kind of like, I gotta make sure I get in the gym and train, and give 110% every single session, because then that's gonna minimize the anxiety that I have once that fight day comes. Even when fight day came, bro, like I'm still like, I'm nervous as shit. Like it's inevitable. Like you're just gonna have that feeling. If you don't have that feeling, that one time I didn't have that feeling, I ended up losing, which was in reality fighting. I didn't feel the nerves. I was like, oh, I'm good. Boom, and end up losing a unanimous decision. So it's like I learned to kind of like understand that the nerves and the anxiety, if I have it, it's good because it's gonna keep me sharp. But as far as like the whole build up to it, it's just like it's nerve wracking. I think that's why a lot of people like can't get through fight camp because it's like it's very nerve wracking. You know, it's not just physically a physical toll; it's also a mental toll because you're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly thinking about it.
Thank you for that, man. I've always wondered what that process is like before competition for some folks. But I
Yeah,
have always heard that a lot of fighters, a lot top level fighters, say if I wasn't nervous, I knew something was off. Or I think Rampage said it's like if I wasn't so nervous and like so stressed, it triggered the rampage. He's like it wouldn't. If Quentin walked out there, he got his ass whooped.
yeah,
But if I had enough fear, if there was enough shit going in my body, I could turn into Rampage, and then right before the fight, all that fear would manifest into anger, and that it was. He's like, it's almost like an out of body experience. You kind of watch yourself and go, "Who the hell is that?" And
right.
so I've heard that before. Fighters do that a lot. But I did want to talk about your pro debut. You debuted as a pro on the prestigious promotion Ring of Combat, which is ROC for those of you who've only ever seen the three letters. We've just seen a lot of pros throughout the career. And then you went into the CFFC, and then, of course, most recently, Combate Global, which I remember as Combate America, like when it had Daddy
Yeah,
Yankee on that show. I don't remember if you remember that MTV3 show that they had with
yep.
Daddy
I remember.
Yankee. Yeah, JC
Yes, sir.
Lamas, I think, won that season. It's like the Ultimate Fighter for Combate.
Yeah.
Um, so speaking to your experience, can you talk about maybe what you learned from when you debuted and then your most recent fight? Like if you were talking to a rookie fighter, guy that's just coming up, what insight would you give him? Like, hey, when you debut, it's gonna feel like X, Y, Z, but once you've got the hang of this, it'll feel more like ABC instead of that.
So when you debut, you don't remember anything from the fight. It's like it's a glimpse. Like it happens so fast, and you're in and out, and you're like, what the hell happened? Right? Like you just have like little snapshots of the fight. Like you don't remember anything. It wasn't until like I had like my sixth, seventh fight that I was just like, okay, now I can vividly remember everything, the process. So that's one part of gaining the experience. But that's learning to kind of like what my coach likes to say it like live in the moment, you know, live with the jitters. You know, the jitters is really what throws everybody off, right? Which is the nerves, the anxiety. Like you're so nervous, it's like you're in such a kind of like flight or fight mode that it's just like you kind of can't remember everything to the process. But the more you do it, the more you're in it. It's like it becomes part of you, natural. You know, it becomes something that like you're already like used to. So that's why you kind of start having moments where you're like, oh, I remember doing this. You just start kind of like feeling at home, right? So that's part of the process to it. You know, aside from that, what I would say, like as far as going from debuting to now, once you turn pro, just understand that time. You think time's on your hands, but really it's not. Like time's gonna go by quick. So as far as like from when I turned pro to now, understand that consistency is a very big thing in this game. So that's part of the things that I've learned as far as like from when I first debuted to my last recent fight, which is about a year ago. You just want to be consistent and kind of like understand that even though you're young and all that stuff in the fight game, you know, time is not on your side. So consistency is very important.
Thank you for that, man. I think that helps a lot of the younger fighters to understand like what they're jumping into. But during your career, you became a father. You said it like I was training already, and then like right as my son was being born, I went straight into it. Do you think fatherhood changed the way that you started to compete?
I wouldn't say it did because I was still, regardless of what, if I would have became a father, not a father, which I did, you know, like it really wouldn't have changed anything because you know the quote that says that motivation, something about motivation. It's not what keeps you going. It's discipline. Like I always had that discipline from my father installing that into me. So whatever I decided to do, in my life, I was gonna do it I wasn't gonna give it half-ass, you know. So whether I had become a father or not, like I still would have been trained the same way. You know, like I still would be doing it, going to the gym. I would still be making my weight, all that stuff. So it's like nothing has changed really as far as like because it's who I am personally. Like how I approach things, it's how I'm gonna approach everything. So whether when my son was born, like before I debuted it, like I was still trained the same way. Then my second, third, fourth, like I'm still training the same way. Like it doesn't really change because it's just like who I am and it's something that my father installed in me and how I approach things.
Thank you for that, man. I did also want to know, you had mentioned dealing with the jitters itself, but is there any insight that you could give someone from the outside looking in? Because, there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks. People say a lot of shit, but they don't know how much stress there is. Is there anything that you do? Like, is there something that you can particularly point out and be like, one of the things that helped me deal with the jitters was this? Was there anything of that nature?
Yes, hard sparring. So it's like it's really what it is, bro. Because like and what I mean by hard sparring is it's kind of like going out there and sparring with different people. And mind you, this is a topic that we can definitely like, get into, like that is completely different, right? But it's just like when you go spar with somebody, like if I was to go spar with you and I know like we're gonna go hard sparring, even though we have headgear on and gloves and knee pads and elbow pads and shin guards, like I know you're gonna like give me like about 90 to 95% of your power. And I'm like, yo, like I don't really know this dude, but he's gonna hit me. And that's making me nervous. And that's making me butterflies in the stomach. And it's like it's those feelings that you want to kind of get that's gonna help you when you come into fight day. You understand that we just spoke about like how like when you first debut, everything happens fast because of the flight or fight mode. You constantly like you just kind of like so nervous, like everything's going on in your brain, things you're thinking a thousand things at one time because you're like not used to it. But the more fights you have, the more you understand, the more you feel at home. Same thing with that kind of like hard sparring. That helps you control the jitters because if you kind of like flow sparring all the time, kind of like just like going with the flow, having fun, which is great, which is important, but you don't get that real hard sparring of like getting cracked. Maybe sounds wrong to say, but maybe you get like you see a couple of flashes here and there, getting taken down. Your coach is telling you, you got to get up, you got to get up. You're getting smothered in the cage. If you don't have that feeling, you won't know what it feels like once you get into that cage and then it hits you and you're like, yo, this is really trying to knock my head off. He's holding me down. He's suffocating me. Like, how do I get out? Like that helps with the jitters. So you kind of want to find yourself in that spot in camp before you actually go out there and fight.
Okay, so simulating really bad, like being in a bad position or being in a place that the hard sparring creates the anticipation, which creates the nervousness and the anxiety. Getting
Yes,
cracked lets you know this is what it's gonna feel like when he catches you, and then
correct.
getting dropped or getting put on your back with somebody on top of you and having your coach tell you to yell at you to get back up is exactly what happens in most fights. A guy gets taken down and his coach is like, "Yo, get up to your feet. I don't care how you do it, just get up."
Yeah. That's really what it is. Like think about it. Like there's so many like yeah, like and I learned this as an amateur, like it's like you wanna already experience all the bad positions before they happen. It's the unknown that really throws everybody off, right? It's the unknown that scares everybody. Like when we don't know what's gonna happen, that's really what throws us off. It's like when you're watching a movie and it's the unknown, but you're like, yo, there's a scary part coming up. This scary part, I know it's coming up, and then boom, and you're like, oh shit. Like so that's exactly how like a fight is. So like if you don't experience that when you're in there like in the cage with the lights on you and like people are yelling and all that stuff and it's just like that's the unknown and you haven't been in a bad position. That's really where your gas tank dips because you're like again like you're not even like thinking about breathing, you're just thinking about surviving. You're in a flight or fight mode, like you're on adrenaline. Yeah, and then like if you don't experience that in camp and have a feeling of knowing how to handle that pressure, you'll be people break.
That makes sense as far as the mental notes as well on what it is that you're really gonna have to go through, and I think that that's what no one experiences outside of the sport. Um,
Yeah.
but I also want to have some fun with you. Can you recall any of the craziest or potentially the craziest post fight story, whether it's like after you got out from fighting, or maybe you guys went to the bar to celebrate and just some shit happened, and you're like, really? Like, damn.
No, man, like I was already a father, so it's like I couldn't even do like much. You know what I mean? Like to me at the time, it's just like, yo, like I got done with fighting, I just want to go with my family, my wife, my kid, right? And every time after that, it was the same thing. The biggest thing that I've done, and like even when I went to like to Florida to fight in Combate, they had this the COVID stuff, the quarantine. So it's like I couldn't leave my hotel room for the whole week. After the fight, I had to like be in the hotel. I couldn't leave. So it's like the most that I done was just kind of like me and my coach ordered fucking a 12 pack. And like my coach is, he's not a big drinker, so he would like be done with one, and I'd have to 11 beers by myself. Like that was the craziest thing. Like after a fight, you know. I'm gonna get back into fighting, so who knows, maybe afterwards, maybe me and my family go out and like we celebrate big. I don't know, like that's still unknown, but as far as previous to that, like it was nothing big, like I'm not me personally, like my life has been very simple, very down to earth, like very just like not chaotic, like it's just like yeah, I just want to like go have fun fighting, collect, if I was pro, collect my check, come back home, and then go eat a nice big breakfast with my family. That's it. And then like we back to business the next day.
I mean, that's wonderful. At least you have like a really good system to keep yourself out of trouble and also like structured. This is my structure. This is what I like to do. It's routine and this is what works for me. And it is true. Most guys should do that. Because when I was down in Texas, it was, oh my God, it was crazy. These guys would finish fighting. Another one of the teammates from the other guy's team would say some shit. They go
Yeah,
out back and then they start scrapping out there. And I was like, what is happening right now? So I feel
yeah.
that. But
I've had
okay,
I've had situations like that where like some of my teammates would be fighting, and it only happened once. A brawl almost broke out, in one of the amateur fights. But that's just as wild as it could get, because again, like it wasn't too crazy. It was at the time my boy fought in I don't know if you remember. You remember New York Fighting Exchange knife?
yes,
Yeah,
NYFE. That was a great promotion. I wish they would do more shows again.
yeah, definitely. And it was at the club, at the Amazura Club. And that's where like that brawl almost broke out. But like that, the environment, it's the environment that kind of set that off. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, when you got, beer, liquor mixing up and like a fight, adrenaline, guys being tough. It's like that. Of course, things like that's gonna happen. But especially in a club setting, But that was as far as what I can remember. That was the craziest thing that could have happened. And not even at my fight, one of my friends' fight.
I think Coach Dan fought for them. Seafood Dan White, Trinidad, he fought for them, and I could tell that the fans were not feeling him because he beat their boy from over there. I think it was in Long Island at the time. But I remember like watching the video of that fight and going, "Wow, they really did not like that he won." They were pissed
Yeah.
off.
I think I think it was probably somebody from Long Island too. Like I think my boy either like lost the split decision or something like that. I think he definitely lost that fight, right? And then like it was just like between the crowd, it was just like somebody from that code that fighter's team, one of the other fighters that fought that same night, just started talking shit, and I think it just like it broke out, almost broke out into a brawl, which is retarded.
Yeah, the escalation is always one of those things that happens so quickly, and it's always by somebody who's probably not even in the middle of it. That's usually
Exactly.
what escalates most of the time. But I did also want to talk about weight cutting, which is a huge topic in the sport.
Yeah.
And a lot of armchair quarterbacks who've never fucking competed in any sport cutting weight, like wrestling, like MMA, like jujitsu, like taekwondo, because sometimes you do have to make the weight to compete. But from an amateur fighter until now, I'm imagining that you've done a lot of weight cuts. But if you could go back to the rookie version of Leo and be like, hey, listen, when we're cutting weight, I know you're not thinking about this shit right now, but this is what we need to do differently. Like now that you're in the position where you have all the experience, what advice would you give the younger version of yourself? Like, hey, this is how you need to cut weight better.
You have to plan accordingly. You have to plan accordingly. You have to be disciplined. You have to make sure that like you're not fooling around. Like as far as like being strict with your diet, if you're gonna have a big cut, right? You have to get your weight down as low as possible. Naturally, the healthy way. This is what I've learned like working with my nutritionist Mark. He's the one that has been helping me make all my weights recently after I came back from a 6 year hiatus. Um, it's like you gotta eat. Like you gotta eat because there's been times I had horrendous weight cuts before, before from my amateurs and up until my fifth pro fight, I had terrible weight cuts, bro. Like I'm talking about like now that I talked to my coach, my nutrition coach, he's like, yo, in a way you're kind of like frying your organs. Like you think you're fine, but like on the inside you're like destroying your body. There'd be times where it's just like there'd be times where I'd be hydrated for a full 24 hours because I was so nervous as a pro. I'd be so nervous about missing weight that I would make weight a whole 24 hours. So I'm driving from the Bronx, or they're driving me from the Bronx all the way to Atlantic City, and I'm like I'm like half dead because I'm at 135 for a full 24 hours, bro. Not healthy, not advisable. Definitely wouldn't do it. But you have to know how to kind of like get your weight down correctly, and then you have to do what's called a water load, which is a week, fight week. That's how you really get majority of your weight out of you, and then a couple of sessions on the sauna. I'm talking about like me. I was doing like when I didn't know anything, I'd be doing saunas, and mind you, like a kid from the Bronx in the hood, like we didn't really have like money for the gym membership, so I'd lock up the bathroom, cover the bottom of the door with towels, I'd turn the hot water on, and I'm just trying to sweat everything out. That was my sauna. Um, and then I tried the bath cut, where like I'm putting steam water, like bro, I would do like 20 sessions in like just in and out, trying to like, cut that weight, bro. It was terrible. It was terrible. I'm like destroying my organs. So that's what I would like kind of like tell the younger me to do. Even like the younger guys that want to fight. So like make sure you like eating, you know, because eating will help you lose weight. You know, you just gotta know how to do it, right? And then having a plan to do a water load if you're gonna do a big cut.
Definitely something that we are at the halfway mark of our pod with Leo the Mexecutioner Muñiz. I want to talk to you about the sponsor of our podcast, none other than Sanibel. That's right. Sanibel provides high-level MMA equipment at affordable prices. Whether you're a novice, an enthusiast, or just want to get into shape, martial arts is a wonderful way to get it done. And I believe that the right equipment and the right gear will help you get off to the right foot. So head over to sanibel.com/GOTDAM or use the promo code GOTDAM for 10% off as it helps the show and I get a cut of the sales. Thank you for your curiosity as always. And now back to our show. A little bit about when I wrestled, I used to hate it because you have to water load for about a week. And then all of a sudden, my brothers would put me in the hottest bath I've ever been in with Epsom salt, and you just sit there and suffer for a while. And then they pull you
Yep.
out, they put the towels on the floor. We used to have this really thick comforter that like you could put 3 bodies in there. How big it was.
Yeah.
My brothers would fold up the bottom of the comforter, so it was 2 layers, and then they would fold the other 2 layers on top of me. So I would literally sit there in a sandwich underneath all these towels
Just sweating.
and sweat and just be dying and be like, God, please, if I get out of this, like I'm gonna stop eating cheeseburgers on Saturday. I
You
promise.
know, we all have that thought, like right when you think like, yo, I'm gonna die, like, oh my god, this is so horrendous. I can't be eating like that anymore. Da, da, da. And then like the fight's over, you win, whatever the results are, and like you go back to being a fat ass. You know, like you're eating everything. Every point is like, yo, I'd be eating. And I'd be like, oh my god, I'm so full, I can't eat no more. And I'm like, wait, no, let me eat that because I don't know when I'm gonna have to go eat again. You know, and I'm just like stuffing my face, and like it would hurt to sit down, it hurt to lay down, and I'm just like, yo, like it's just like almost like a eating disorder, bro. Like it's just terrible.
It really is, and I know that a lot of people don't get that because most people have never experienced this. So like I know that people who have experienced were all like, yeah, I don't want to do this shit anymore like this. But now that you have the experience, I'm happy that like it's better. You have a nutritionist, which I think every fighter at some point should like focus on getting because it's going to make a huge difference. But I know that you had mentioned that you do have the intention to go back. I did want to know because I know you have a crazy work schedule, hectic because you're, home, the wife, the kids. That's a lot, and people don't get that. And then now you have your own team, which is amazing. Do you intend to go back to competing, or do you have like a window of when you'd like to try to go back to compete?
Well, I just signed with another fight management company, upper management. They work with a lot of kind of like Mexican fighters. Just because of me being Mexican, I think it's a great kind of like angle for me to be in or be partnered up with them, because then from there we'll fight the right we'll have the right angles to kind of like get the right fights. With my record, my experience, I kind of like gotta be smart, with the fights that I take. So we are looking at in a couple of months. No contract has been sent, but there's already kind of like a plan out there. I definitely will be getting at least 2 fights in this year before the year ends. And then like we'll take it from there, bro. It's nothing is again nothing no contract has been sent, but I am with the management company right now. And they're the ones kind of like that's gonna plan everything out for me as far as like the fights, where it'll be at, and all and so on.
That's wonderful, brother. Yo, congratulations on that. That's always a
Thank you,
good
bro.
feeling to be with the right team. And I do hope that we get to see those fights this year. That'd be awesome for us to be able to talk
For
about in
sure.
the future. But yeah, 2 fights that's gonna be wonderful. I'm hoping to see this soon. Um, I do see that you do have fighters in your team, so I guess this would be more on the coaching aspect. Is there any advice that you would give to a rookie or young fighter that's starting their journey? Like if you could just, hey kid, let me sit you down real quick. Let me tell you some truths that are a little hard. They're gonna be a punch in the gut, but you need to know them now.
Having a coach with experience. Um, there's a lot that goes on. I'm talking from my personal experience, right? Everybody has different experience. Everybody has the kind of like, their own little kind of like blueprint. What I've experienced as far as my side, not having the right coach, not having the coach that has experience, has actually put me in the position that I'm in right now, right? Like like I feel like I was decently good enough if I was guided the right way to end up in a better position and a more high promotion than where I'm at right now. I'm not saying I'm downgrading what I've done or compliments of the fights that I've had. But I would say that if I was with a different coach, let's just say with my coach right now, I would be in a much better position in my fight career, right, as a whole. Um, so having a coach that has experience, having a coach that, has actually taken a fighter to a bigger promotion from the ground up, has built fighters is good to have. Because again, that takes away a lot of the thinking that you have to do. It's just like, all right, I'm the one getting out there, but you're the captain, kind of like steering the ship. So it's something that it's very important for young fighters to know, because it's not just about getting in there and fighting. You have to also think about the business aspect. I've been in the game long enough where like you have to think like a businessman. It's not if you just want to do a fight just to do it. I mean, you can get one fight or just kind of just go to other gyms and fight and spar, But if you want to do it and make it a career, make some money out of it, you have to like think ahead and you have to think about how you're positioning yourself. There comes marketing, there comes the correct fights, and what the correct fights mean is just like it's not just about I am 1-0 as a pro. I'll take on any fight whatsoever for only $1,000. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's just like you have to. There's a risk and reward to it, and I think Sean might have put some light on that. He's like, why would I fight a top 10 guy for at the time when he made a UFC debut, let's say 30-30? It makes no sense. You're getting punched in the head. You might get concussed. You might get knocked out. You might get there's tens of thousands of people watching the fight. Why would you do it for so little? So it's like when you're coming up, it's kind of like that's how you got to think. It's not just about, let's take on the toughest fight that we can even for amateurs. Like, let's just take a tough fight, and the guy's a Division I wrestler. It's like, come on, bro. Like, that makes no sense. Now, you're trying to build up a fighter. You're not trying to, like, just have him get a couple of 1 or 2, 3 amateur fights and maybe 1 or 2 pro fights. If they want to build up and want to kind of, like, build something, you have to think like a businessman. You have to kind of, like, pick the right fights and know how to pick them where you're positioning yourself in the right ways. There'll be times, like, especially in the East Coast, like up here, PA, New York, New Jersey, it is very hard to kind of like, you have to be super smart with your fights because out here is grind. It's hard. There's a lot of good fighters out here, and like, you don't want to catch yourself fighting a guy that you could be fighting for a belt, right, as a pro, and getting more eyes on you because it's a belt, it's a regional belt, so you have bigger promotions looking at you, and then all of a sudden like you take him on in your second or first pro fight. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So it's like that's why it's important, like for the young guys to be, kind of like coached and led by somebody that has experience and knows how to navigate not only developing a fighter but developing, the business side of it.
That makes perfect sense. Given that a lot of what I've seen with some of these fighters, they've talked about their coaches and their team, and because it is you fighting, it is a team sport in some way. Like I don't think any of us get halfway as far as we should without good coaches, without a good team.
Yeah.
And being at Legends, we're at Legends, and I love that team because I saw Adam's fights when he was fighting as an amateur and as a pro. When he had the one fight as a pro, but I've seen his amateur career. I saw what lineage he came from. I saw Mike's lineage in his jujitsu team. So like I have said it before, but I felt kind of like weird because they're like, well, you're not a pro, you don't know shit. I'm like, I got you. So I wanted to ask a pro, like, is that something that you would think about? Like, should you research your coaches before you train?
Absolutely, bro. Like it's like, and again, again, my personal experience. What I know now, I wish I knew then, because it's like I would have made certain moves that would have bettered my career. Again, if fighting was from the career that I chose and I wanted to excel at it or excel more at it than what I did now, I would have made some major adjustments just alone. Let's just say 2015. 2015 was when I suffered my first pro loss. After that loss, I should have looked and mind you, like I had people around me telling me, "Hey man, it's time to move on. Like you have outgrown that certain gym that I was with. It's like it's time to move on because the training wasn't changing. The let's just say the training wasn't changing. It wasn't updating. It was still the same kind of like system. I didn't really have a camp. It was just like, hey, go hit past one of your guys, one of your training partners, and then do a 1 hour sparring session. Big gloves, no real like actual MMA training. It's just like just put on 16-ounce gloves, shin guards, and fucking go try and knock each other out. Like that's such an old school way of thinking of training. And again, like once 2015 happened, I should have made those adjustments. I didn't. It is what it is. But after I had left them by 2020, I saw everything, bro. Like I saw how much of a kind of like, let's just say, a waste of time it was on my end to stick on that side for so long for no reason, just for the sake of. And actually spoke about put this up on my Instagram. You know, I was being loyal to a fault. Like I was being loyal to somebody else, and I should have been loyal more to me. You know, so it's like researching your coaches and knowing what they've done, who they've built up, you know, and how credible, how knowledgeable they are. It plays a big role. But also, I would say it's like how, in a way, how humble can they be to know that at a certain point they need to take their fighters to somebody else that'll give them the information or the look that they need that they feel like they can't get. For example, I have kids. I'm kind of like, I want them to be the best that they can be, right? I take them to Essential Jiu-Jitsu, right? Essential Jiu-Jitsu is run by JT Torres. JT Torres, two-time ADCC champion. It's like, why would I not take them there and get training partners and looks and understanding of Jiu-Jitsu in a pure sense when I know my Jiu-Jitsu is not up to par, kind of like to what JT's Jiu-Jitsu is at. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, it's just me. It's my kids, so I'm only going to coach them and they can only learn from me and this and that. Like, no, like, I understand where I'm at. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take them and let their game evolve in as part that I can't fill for them. As far as like MMA goes, I think I can fill that with, you know, like that part, you know, well myself because of my experience. But should anything come up, let's just say boxing, I'm gonna take them to the best boxing coach that I can, that I know, that will sharpen their boxing skills. I will take them to the best wrestling guy that I know to sharpen their wrestling game. But notice how like I have like little links here and there, connections that I know that I have by my side around me that will develop either my game, you know, or, you know, my kids' games, or in this case now, the teams, the guys that I'm with, the guys that are kind of like, you know, behind me, being led by me. I know where I'm gonna send them so they can like work on specific things. And then like we come back to, you know, our room and we put everything together.
Yeah, I love that, man, because it's kind of like that iron sharpens iron and gold rubs off on gold thing. I think
Yep,
Randy Couture talked about that a while back, and I think he had like the perfect like way to pinpoint it. He's like, you want the tools in your tool shed to be perfect, and sometimes
absolutely.
the best tool isn't in your shed; it's in someone else's. You just have to walk on over and ask them to teach you how that tool works, and so you can pick it up.
Exactly, bro. Exactly. That's all. That's what I was doing all pretty much after I left, and I was kind of like on my own. I was going everywhere. I got to train at multiple spots. I got to train with Egyptian world champions. I got to train with UFC fighters. Like I've been in a lot of rooms with a lot of high level people that I learned from, and it's like they kind of all, you know, put me on that. My boy, Mickey, like sent that off. He was like, yo, like, you know, you gotta like look out for yourself before you kind of like think about being loyal to just one spot because you're the one getting in there. You know, you're the one in the cage. And my coach told me this, before I fought, he's like, hey, if you feel like I'm not like giving you or guiding you the right way, please let me know. And I will even try and find a spot for you where you feel like you're gonna be guided the right way. Cause he's like, at the end of the day, all I'm doing is I'm on the outside, yo, move your head, 1, 2, 1, 2, give me a take, da da da. At the end of the day, honestly, like you're the one that's gonna either like take the victory or you might take a loss, and you might take a loss via submission or via knockout. And what I learned, because I've lost, I've lost by knockout. I'm the one that's got to deal with the repercussions afterwards. I'm the one that's got to deal with the pain of the knockout. And I'm not even talking about just like the mental part. I'm talking about the physical part. You know, where it's like it's hard to even bite down my food, my front teeth because it hurts because I got hit there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you got to think about it like that for the young fighters. You got to think about it. It's like I got to like look out for me, you know, before I kind of just think about like I got to stick with one guy and one guy only. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to deal with that loss. You're the one that's going to deal with the pain, physical pain of that loss.
Yeah, I feel you, and there's definitely a lot of wisdom to that. So I appreciate that. By the way, congrats on Cartel Fight Club. Your
Oh,
gym
thank you,
looks
bro.
amazing. Your team looks like they have a great time. They understand what you're teaching them. You're giving them the flow they need and the hard sparring. I've seen a little bit of both. What is it that ultimately made you start your own team? Because that's a very hard path, in my opinion.
It absolutely is. I always knew that I wanted to have my own spot. I just didn't have like personally, I didn't feel like I had enough experience like I still wanted to gain more. And mind you, like I'm going back into the fight game and I'm trying to open up more doors for me because I know it's gonna open up all the doors for them, right? And even if it's them and plus the other generations coming up behind them, it'll give them more access to a lot more information that I didn't have. But I know where I'm at and I know what doors I can open to start like kind of like giving them access to that. So I knew I always wanted that. And then biggest thing was that with my experience, 8-3 as a pro, having to train with a lot of good people. A lot of it was in Jersey. Unfortunately, New York is still very underdeveloped. I am trying to bring that level up, right? Because it's very hard for me to find that kind of like training that I need for myself, right? So I still have to do traveling here and there. There's some plans to travel out to the West Coast in a couple of months because again I need to get different looks. That's already in the works. But I got to keep doing that in order to develop me because then for me to come back, I'm gonna help develop everybody else. So I'm just trying to raise that level of fighters in New York where like now people don't really have to go Jersey, PA, you know, California, Las Vegas. Like I'm just trying to make sure like we trying to bring up a level in New York where it's just like we have a kind of like a spot where it's just like, yo, all the heavy hitters in New York are coming over here. And, whether you part of the team or not, I just want to have a facility where like good training, hard training and good energy is in where it's just like everybody it's developing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I do see that already in the beginning and the culmination of your gym. You guys are located in Mt.Kisco, correct?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. And Mt.Kisco, for a lot of the watchers who don't know, who aren't from New York, is a very nice place, very comfortable, actually. The few times I've been there, I felt like I was at home. Went to a place recently in Mt.Kisco with my wife. We enjoyed it. Good food, good vibes, good energy in that village. And it's like really nice place. So I'm happy that your team has it so that, nobody's walking out to their car for this type of way. Because I've been to certain gyms in certain neighborhoods and like, I'm not going to say the names, but I grew up in Yonkers and there were certain gyms that I will go to in PA and other places, and I'd be like, I just feel like I'm not safe right now walking to the car, so I'm gonna look around. It's like, all right, something pops up, I'm running, I'm out. I'm
But
not
but
even.
remember that's what we talked about. So that's the thing about kind of like the poor man sport, right? Like boxing gyms, you're not gonna find the best boxing gyms out like let's just say out here like in Hawthorne and I'm not downgrading like any spots, but it's just like it's a different livelihood, bro. You grew up in South Yonkers, I grew up in Bronx. Like there's just a certain like just the community, just a zip code alone builds you differently. It builds you differently. Like it's like you're just a different, in a way, different breed because not because you want to, it's just because you have to. You get eaten alive, like living in certain zip codes, if you don't build thick skin and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you're not gonna find the best kind of like the toughest natural fighters, right, in good areas, like because people gravitate to other things because fighting is obviously like very hard, very demanding. So it's like I'm just trying to like make sure that when being out here in the Westchester County area, I'm just trying to bring a little bit of like a real fighting environment. At the same time, like making sure that nobody's being an asshole, and like making sure everyone's getting quality training. Is what I'm trying to say. In a safe
Absolutely.
neighborhood.
These places and lately, what technique am I gonna use? What is coach gonna say? That's a better problem to have than like walking in and out of the building and being like, "Yo, somebody about to stab me." Like I feel
Exactly.
I had that inclination that somebody's looking at me and I think they think I'm rich because they see this big ass bag. Brother, there's nothing in here but boxing gloves and shin guards. Nothing fancy. This stuff doesn't cost that much. That's actually why I partnered with Sanibel. That's why I have the sponsorship with them, and I have the affiliate link because their equipment isn't expensive. So people see you with like all this gear and they're like, he's probably rich. Probably no, no, sir. I'm not rich. I'm from the hood.
Right.
I live in McLean Avenue. I'm from the streets. Ain't nothing
Yeah.
here. But now that you have this really nice place, like you've created the nest and everything has gone beautifully, and now you have your own team, I do see that your kids training. You did talk about it that your kids do train, and even your youngest trains at home. Like I saw that, I was like, what? Let me find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as a parent, do you ever envision them like being a fighter? Is there one or two of your kids that you're like, yeah, that was definitely going to decide to be?
So so my oldest, so mind you, like I'm not here to like be like with my kids. I'm not here like, oh, you guys are all gonna fight, right? Like That's my journey, right? However, knowing how to fight is something that's going to be very crucial for me to install into them because I need to know that when I'm not around, they can handle themselves physically like without a problem. So knowing how to fight is going to be something that's going to be very important for me to know that they know. If they want to compete, I know that I want to put them in a position where like they know that they have the resources and the right people around them where they will have success in competitions. Um, my oldest one says he wants to be a fighter. He's been saying this since he was little. Even now, he's still with the same mentality, so I do see him actually fighting. Um, the baby though, the one that you saw training at home, bro, I think he's naturally gonna be the one. He's the youngest, and bro, let me tell you, what I didn't go through with all three of them, as far as like the kids being a headache, he's the one. Like he's the one, he's the one that like I look and I'm like, I'm gonna give you one, dude. I'm gonna give you one. All other three, like they were calm, they were good, but this one, bro, this is the one that I'm just like, God, like not that I'm gonna do it, but it's just like he gets you to that point. He gets you to that point, bro. It's just like, holy shit, bro. Like this kid is all three in one, all three in one. I kid you not.
I know what you mean. I was the baby for a while, and then when my baby brother was born, I was like, "Yo, my man, like you pushing it." But I
Yeah,
get what you're
exactly.
saying. Like I think it's the thing about like they always tell you like depending on where your kid is born, like the oldest tends to be the calmest and just like a person of action. The middle children usually they're very cool. They have their own flow. They do their own thing. But it's the youngest. That's the one that everybody's like, we got to worry
You,
about that one.
you know, it's very true. That is very true. My oldest is the calmest. He's my general. That's why I gave him the nickname the general. Um, There's the two middle ones, my daughter, which is in the middle, and then like the third one. They're both calm, right? They both have their own little flow, right? Their own little style, like but the last one, bro. The last one is he's a little dynamite, bro. He's ready to, I don't even know what to say, bro. He's just a handful.
No, I believe you. I believe you. I only have one now, and my daughter is as cool as the breeze. I'm worried about my youngest. I'm like when my wife and I decide to have more kids down the line. My
Yeah.
daughter lives in Florida with her mom, but my wife and I haven't had kids yet. And we're like thinking about it, and I always have the same dream about my kids. And I'm like, I'm gonna have another four, and I can tell you right now that the youngest one is the one that I'm gonna be like, "Do not te sabe lo que yo te voy a say," and I'm like, "Yo, bro, I'm
Yeah,
gonna send you to
exactly,
DR,
bro.
and so I'm gonna send your little ass to DR so you can find out what it's like, and then see if you come back."
Yeah, that's 100% true, bro. Holy snaps.
So it's just there's definitely makes that sense. But I did see that your youngest is very talented already. Like his ability to move already, and it doesn't look like there's any. He doesn't even look like he has any doubt when he's moving. I was like, wow,
It's
he sounds.
crazy. He's doing front rolls already, bro. Like it's I'm telling you, like it's this kid is everything like in all three of my kids, this kid is everything in one. Like athletic, his own flow, aggressive. Hey, this kid's just he's something else, bro. He's something else.
So we definitely know who the two fighters will most likely be in the family. So that's pretty dope to see that. And I did want to know because as a parent, like I watched my daughter compete in soccer. She did gymnastics for a while. I because I've competed in martial arts most of my life, I get this immediate anxiety watching like my teammates train or compete. Like when they compete, I'm like having like a nervous breakdown. When you watch your kids or even your wife trains jiu-jitsu too and she competes,
Hmm.
or your friends, do you ever get the jitters too, like watching someone you love compete?
They are off the charts, bro. I cannot control. Like I'm like nerve. Like they don't see it. I'll keep a stone cold face, but inside, bro, I am balling. Like holy, like my, it's like 10 times than when I fight. Cause it's like I guess like I have that feeling which is like I know when it's me, and I can control that, but I can't control them. Like they have to trust that what they've been doing, it's gonna pay off, which always does. But even like watching my teammates, like I'm just like I'm more nervous watching them than me knowing that I'm about to walk out and I'm about to get into a fist fight with somebody in the cage. Like that's more calm than me watching my kids compete or my wife compete or even my partners and my friends fight. Like it's 10 times worse watching them than me doing it myself. But I guess it's that the unknown feeling, right? Is the unknown feeling that I say exactly. And then it's like I don't have control of it. I have control of myself, but I can't control how they're gonna react, when they're in there. because it's not me, it's them. That's really what throws me off.
Yeah, it's like the lack of control. Like I can control when I'm there, when I'm doing what I think, what my opponent does. I can kind of read, but like when it's the other person that you love the most, you're like, oh my god, I saw the hand. Move your other hand, and you're just panicking. And that's happened
Yep.
to me. I've had a teammate that like he got TKO'd. He didn't get knocked out, but he got hurt and like just stunned. And they were hitting him, and I wanted to cry. I was like, oh my god, please just stop. Like I don't want to watch this anymore.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. I've seen my friends, go down too. Like it's heartbreaking. Like to me, like like honestly, I would rather it be me than them, because it just hurts. It just hurts. I hate to see my teammates lose. I hate to see anybody, get submitted. I hate to see any of them, get knocked out. It hurts, bro. It like because I genuinely care about my boys, my friends, and it's just like it hurts like a lot, like to see them, because I guess because we have that connection of seeing them, what they've done, the sacrifice, the hard work, seeing them push through it in training camp. We've seen them, get to a breaking point, but they're still going. And like, unfortunately, sometimes again, what you don't have control over, it's the result of the fight. It doesn't go their way and it hurts. It hurts to see that, play out like that. But it's the game we're in.
Yeah, especially in combat sport. And then this was one last topic of debate, which I did see that you made a video on. I urge everyone that watches the podcast to go watch that video where you explain proper sparring etiquette for the different types of sparring. I know you've done the video already, but can you break down those different types of sparring etiquette so that the guys that were coming in, or maybe some guys that have been training for a while who just, the coach never pulled them to the side and said, hey, this doesn't work, or this is how you do this on this date?
So, again, through my learning experience, and this is kind of like just kind of like hearing people talk about it, high level people, people that have done it at a higher level than I have. Um, you want to have your technical sparring days, which majority of it should be throughout the week of training, right? It should be majority of technical sparring. Your hard sparring, honestly, you should only be doing it in your fight camps. Like as far as like your hard sparring, where like, and by hard sparring I mean only sparring for the amount of rounds and minutes you're going to be fighting. No more, no less, right? Like, well, less maybe if you're building up. If you're trying to, then there's a phase to that. Like, you want to make sure the fighter peaks. You want to push them a little bit back, and you bring them back down. So by the time fight week comes, they're at the peak, right? Because you can't stay at the peak forever. You have to make sure the timing is right where you get there, and then after the fight, you're coming back down. You know what I'm saying? So, hard sparring should be only like on fight camps. Hard sparring should be if, for example, my fights, they're scheduled for 3-5s. I am not doing no hard sparring past 3-5. I am just doing 3-5s. If I have a 5-by-5, then I'm gonna do 5-by-5. Like, but as far as like going what I used to do, and I think I talked about it before, I am not putting on 16-ounce gloves and throwing bombs with multiple different people for an hour, trying to knock each other's heads off. That is incorrect. It's not. It's not. It's already proven that you don't get better through it like that, right? So as far as like hard sparring goes, I'm only doing it in fight camp, and I'm only doing 3-5s, excuse me. As far as everything else with the technical part, bro, you should be able to put on MMA sparring gloves, knee pads, elbow pads, right? Shin guards. You should be able to do the entire sport, because that's where we're at right now with MMA. MMA is a sport in itself. Before, when I started, it was striking, grappling, and then put it together in fight day. Now, it's everything has to be able to be done in one setting. You should be able to know how to strike into your clinches, into your takedowns, take the person down, control them, pass their guard, submit them, strike here and there, and stuff like that. You should be able to, defend the takedown. If you get taken down, you should know how to get back up. And all that should be able to be done with small MMA gloves, which is about, the poofy ones, not the small 4-ounce gloves. Yes, those blue ones, right? Exactly. You should be able to do those, right? You should be able to have fun with sparring, right? Because again, you can't learn anything if you're in a flight or fight mode, right? You're nervous. Like, imagine if you wearing those gloves and then somebody cracks you. You're like, holy shit. Like, I better like just kind of like stick to what I know, which is if you're starting off, which is going to be very low, which is probably going to be a big haymaker to try and like clinch something. You can't work your techniques that you've been doing on the pads in jiu-jitsu, in wrestling. You can't work it because you're so nervous about getting your bell rung. Nobody wants to get their bell rung, bro. Like, even as a fighter, like, yeah, I fight. I don't want to get rocked, bro. Right? That's just not fun. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have gym wars. If I'm not getting a check, bro, if I'm not getting a check, I am not having a gym war with anybody, right? Unless, unless I'm preparing for that fight, like, I am not having no gym wars. I'm gonna have fun sparring with my friends, right? Where we're trying new things, we're trying to learn new things, we're trying to find our timing, we're trying to build that conditioning of the up down motion of MMA, right? And I'm just trying to like make sure that I leave knowing that I got a little bit better while keeping my brain cells. So it's like that's the biggest thing. Like, you gotta know, you gotta be able to do technical sparring, where again, it's about, let's just say 60 to 70, 70's pushing it, maybe 70%, 60 to 70%, right? Where you're moving around, you're having fun, you're learning, right? You're trying things, and then when, a contract gets signed, okay, if I'm gonna fight on a Sunday, I might decide to have hard sparring on a Sunday, because you want to kind of like replicate your fight day. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna fight on Friday, you kind of want to have your hard sparring on Friday. At the time that you'll be fighting. Let's say you're fighting at 10 o'clock. It's hard to do that, but you want to kind of get a couple of people where it's like, yo, I need a couple of bodies to be able to do a hard sparring session on Fridays at 10 p.m. That way, when fight day comes, your body's used to you're in an 8-week camp, your body's used to fighting hard on a Friday at 10 p.m. You're fired up, you're ready to go. You don't have to do kind of like get yourself in that mode. That's kind of like living in the moment, living in the jitters. And then aside from that, like all throughout the week, should be technical sparring, bro. You just gotta have fun, And again, like, it helps not only the fighters, but it helps your average Joe, the guy that just wants to kind of like not compete, not fight, but he wants to learn this. He wants to learn this shit. It's fun. It's good to know. It gives you a very good sense of confidence knowing that you can handle yourself in a fight. But how you gonna want people to join the community, the fight community, if every gym they go to, they go against a young guy that has freaking all they want to do is fight, and then they get the bell rung. Hey, I ain't coming back to this shit. This shit sucks. You know what I mean? Like, it helps everyone, right? It'll help the market increase in MMA, right? Where like now you get different people from like different backgrounds coming in, and not just the young guys that just want to fight. You know what I mean? Like, it helps. It gives everybody a chance to learn this game. So again, technical sparring all throughout the week. Only do your hard sparring when you have a fight camp. And only do it for the amount of rounds you're going to fight. If you have a kickboxing fight, if your fight's 3-2s, guess what? You're only doing 3-2s. And I'm talking about hard sparring, where you're going about 90%, 95% with another partner. And that's about it. You might Shark Tank it, here and there, however it is, but it does not pass 3 rounds, 2 minutes. For example, that's your fight.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate the breakdown, because I was watching Max Holloway recently. Was like, I think he's ditched sparring altogether, because he's like, I got to a point where he said that he had more injuries from sparring, which does make sense. A lot of guys go way too hard, and then I'm like, you're gonna hurt yourself, man. You don't want to do that. And then George St. Pierre had talked about how when he did spar, he only sparred specifically within that time range. Like you said, if I have 5 5s, I'm not working 1 minute more. I'm not working 1 minute less, but I'm not going ham. I'm not gonna
Like,
kill myself and do a 6th and 7th and 8th round for what?
exactly. Like why? Like, if you got to think about it like this. In hard sparring, if you do hard sparring where you are going 90 to 95% with everything, right? I'm talking about like everything above MMA. If you are doing that for 3 5-minute rounds, do you know how exhausting that is? Like, you're literally going through a fight. Like, there is no like, oh, let's get extra rounds for conditioning. No, that is the conditioning. That is the conditioning, bro. There is no like, oh, and there is no like, oh, let's, in the minute break, let's keep moving around. Let's just keep. No, like, if you're going 100, like, you can only sprint for so long, bro, before you gotta hop off that treadmill and catch your breath. So if you do that when you're sparring in your hard sparring sessions for your 3 5s, in my case 3 5s, it's like, I'm gonna need that minute break. I might even replicate like, yo, bring me a stool, let me fucking sit down, and let me drink some water. I might need to do that because I am maximizing, my effort in those 5 minutes, where I gotta learn how to bring my heart rate down, collect myself, and going for a second round, and then bring it back down again, going for that third round, and that's it. And then I go and and I'm gonna do whatever else is on the agenda. Whether it's maybe I take 10-minute break and I do 3 5s on the wall. Maybe I take a 3 minute break and then I go do 3 5 minute on the bags. You see what I'm saying? But I'm specifically trained, sport specific. I'm training my sport as far as the pro goes. And I've been in the room with pros, UFC fighters. That's how they do, bro. That's how they do it.
Yeah, yeah. The few pros that I've gotten the honor of training with, especially down in Florida, they have like a specific program. They eat a specific way. They train a specific way. One of the things that one of the guys told me is like, "Do you ever feel like you're nervous about like your cardio giving up before a fight?" And I was like, "Yeah, terrified that I'm just gonna be like a deer in headlights. Because once you get tired, it's over. I don't care what anyone says. They don't think that the cardio matters. The cardio matters the most." And something that he gave me that I was like, okay, I could definitely use that outside of a fight camp if I decide to, this year when I turn 29 in March, I plan to go back and competing and doing the amateurs and doing that circuit just to see if it's
Nice.
good for me. And
Yeah.
so I definitely want to try it because it's something I love more than anything in the world. Obviously, I did a podcast about it for a reason, but with that in mind, he said that he adds an additional minute of the sparring round, just not hard sparring, but like regular light sparring. He'll add an extra minute of the hard sparring and he'll make the break time half. He's like, that's a good way to start. So like if you're doing 3 3s, he's like, do your first day 1 minute, 1 minute rounds, 3 rounds, and what half the time of the rest, just to get your body comfortable. Then the second
Yep.
week, the second thing is 2 2 minute rounds, and then the 2 minute rounds with the 30-second rest. Then the 3 minute rounds with the 30-second runs, and then you work your way up to a 4 minute round with 30 seconds rest. But you only do those 3 rounds, and your brain is going to be able to like, as exhausted as you are, it'll still be able to defend. It'll still remember what that feeling is like because now you've conditioned it. But he did say the same thing. Hard sparring though, he's like keep it exact because that's where everyone gets hurt. That's the problem that everybody has in the sport. There's no longevity if you consistently get hurt. And I got hurt like 3 years straight, back to back to back, and that was just training. That's not even competing. But
Yeah.
that's where a lot of guys get hurt is the training room, which is a little insane to me to hear a lot of these fighters at the highest level say that that's where they get injured. That's why Holloway said he stopped sparring altogether. And I don't know if we could ever get to that level where we stop sparring, but that's definitely something that like as an athlete or even as an enthusiast, you have to sit back and go, wait, these guys get hurt more in the act of preparing than they do for the actual fight itself. So like, what are we doing wrong here as a whole?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There should be no pride in like saying like, oh yeah, I'm injured. I'm like, why? Oh, hard sparring. And then I'm like, that makes no sense. Like absolutely. I'm not saying like, oh, like you won't have little kinks here and there. It's gonna happen. But if you're getting injured and like it's just like, bro, I had a lot of injuries when I was with the other gym where I was constantly like there was no kind of like the format was just like yo 100% for an hour. I was getting more injured during that time than when I left and I started kind of doing with other high level people, Gracie New Jersey, Tiger Showman's, Cartel Fight Club, like all of them. But I wasn't getting hurt and I was consistently fighting more because I was healthy. And when you're trying to like when you're getting paid, consistency pays. Is very valuable, bro. That consistent check, bro. Like it's very like you kind of want that. You know what I mean? You don't want to like take one fight and then you're out for a year, which happened a couple of times. With at the other spot, which is like, but it wasn't avoidable because there was no like real like kind of like format or the correct format to do it.
That makes sense. Yeah, I feel you, and that's something that I did wanted to bring up because you're at the pro level. You have like 11 fights now. We're going on 12, and I've
Yes.
watched I've watched your Combate fights. I was watching one of your ROC fights, and I was like, he looks like Bruce Lee with the hair that you had at the time. I don't know if you
Oh.
remember the Bruce Lee cut you had. I'm sorry to bring it up.
No, 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 it's
That
all
was
good.
dope. I was like, yo, my man, look, and I was like, oh, that's all right. That's all right. That looks cool. So the Bruce
Yeah.
Lee cut was dope on the ROC fights, and then I watched the Combate fight, and that knockout was beautiful. It was stupendous, my friend.
Thank you,
But
bro.
watching you fight, I'm like, man, he seems to have this like natural flow when he fights, and the ebb and flow of it. And again, I haven't had a pro on the fight on the pod yet. I've had a lot of great amateurs and a lot of individuals in different combat sports, which has been like a blast for me because I get to learn so much from y'all.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask the last question of my interview with you. What's next for you and your team? What's next for Cartel Fight Club and for Leo the Mexecutioner?
We definitely as far as like me, I definitely got something coming up. I'm just gonna keep it under waters until everything is signed and I know exactly we got a date. Um So we got something coming up. I have a couple of my friends that are with the cartel. They're one of them is I already got their names in there. It's just I'm waiting for opponents to be, opponents' names to be given to me. We're looking at May 17th, and then two guys fighting on June 8th in Maverick. It's a PA, promotion PA. So that's what's on schedule right now. As far as my kids, like they got New York Open coming up in April, and then they got Pan Am's in July. So I have a tight schedule, bro. Don't ask me how I'm doing it, because I don't even know, to be honest with you.
Man, I appreciate you for being with me, Leo. Before you leave us, happy birthday one more time. Thank you for your time. And before I do let you run off and do your thing, because I know you got so much to do today, where can the fans follow you and see more of your team's content?
Sure. Thank you so much, bro, for the shout out, for the birthday. Thank you. You guys can follow me on Leo the Mexecutioner on Instagram, Cartel underscore Fight C for the Cartel Fight Club, and then and that's about it. Yeah, as far as social media goes. Yeah.
That's wonderful, man. I got you. So I'm gonna link all that in the description of our podcast. The episode will air February 26th, 2024 on Monday. I usually do it on Mondays. That's my
Okay.
day to really put it out there. I'm send you the link as well. But I will put it in the description, both your IG and the IG for Cartel Fight Club. Leo, so thank you so much again for being with me. And to all of the people watching at home, keep your peace and thank you so much for your curiosity. Leo,
Thank you,
take
brother.
care.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Take care.
All right, bro.